Hello and namaste. I am Dr. Ravikiran Barigala, an infectious disease specialist at Apollo Hospital in Jubilee Hills. Today, I'll be discussing measles, focusing on its common symptoms, signs, how it's diagnosed, and the available treatment options for this infection. Thank you for joining me. Measles is a viral infection caused by the measles virus, as indicated by its name. Primarily, this infection targets children, but it's not exclusive to them and can affect others as well. While not as prevalent these days, it's still crucial to be aware as it can be mistaken for other common illnesses. There's a growing interest and concern about measles currently, with many people worried about the possibility of contracting it. However, it's important to note that measles is relatively rare in the current era, especially in India, largely due to the widespread vaccination efforts in the country. So measles is something that is spread by one person to another if you are very close to them. It is spread through the air usually, and when we inhale and the measles virus gets into the body, and it can start having different symptoms. So the most common thing that we see before even we start seeing much of the symptoms, there is some like a spot that comes inside their mouth. We call it a Kuplik spots. Most people might miss it because it's actually inside the mouth, who looks inside the mouth. But if you really observe inside the mouth, then you can find the spot first. And then later on, you start having a rash. So it's more what you call as a maculopapular rash, which is like a reddish rash, like a spot-ish type of rash all over the body. It might start in the trunk and it then spreads to different parts of the body, to your arms, to your legs, face, all over the body it might spread. It doesn't cause any like pimples type of thing. It doesn't cause pus, but just some bumps it might cause, or just a flat red rash it might cause. You can have fevers. Fever could be very high also, up to 103 or 104 degrees. You'll be very weak, and especially as it affects children, they become very irritable, they may not eat very well, they might be crying more, they may want to sleep a lot more. Sometimes they may have some vomiting, diarrhea. If it becomes more serious, it might lead to other complications depending for what organ it is affecting. So some of the risk factors that we see, first thing, if you're getting measles, you were probably not vaccinated with measles as a child. So at least in most national programs all across the world, measles is part of the national immunization programs. Like in India, they give it in childhood. I think when you're 9 months of age, then you get the measles vaccines. You get 2 doses of measles vaccines at least 28 days apart. If you get that vaccine, you are pretty much immune from measles for a long, long time. The other thing that happens is some people do not get vaccinated for whatever reasons. Either they forgot the vaccine, or they don't think it is needed, or they never knew that vaccine was required to begin with. Some of the reasons when this vaccination is missed and they are exposed to a person who has measles at that time, then they can also develop measles. There's another form of measles also which develops in older adults. So when we get the vaccine, the protection lasts for about 20-30 years or so. But as we start aging, our immunity starts going down. And as our immunity starts going down, we may not be able to fight the infection based upon the vaccine which was given as a child. So over the years of immunity starts going slowly down. So that's why we also recommend, at least in the immunocompromised adults, to give a booster dose of the vaccine as an adult. That might lift up your antibody levels, and then you can fight the infection better. Other infections can also do this, but measles, the antibody levels will start going down as we age, especially after 20 years of age. The main mode of prevention really is the vaccine that I just mentioned about. Vaccine is very, very safe and very effective. Do not believe any rumors about the vaccination. Just take the vaccine, give it to your children, and it will really, really be effective. The other way is to avoid contact with people who have measles. If somebody is confirmed to have measles, then just stay away from them. They need to be in a completely separate room, in an isolation room, by themselves. just like what we do for a COVID, right? So put them in a separate room, all the staff, even family members. If they're caring for them, they need to wear appropriate precautions, masks, gloves, face shield, so that we don't infect ourselves. So the measles, once you get the measles, there's like an incubation period where you won't have any symptoms. It's like a prodromal symptom stage where you will have the infection but not have any symptoms that can last for a few days. After probably 5 days or so, you might have starting symptoms. So there are several symptoms, as I mentioned. Fever, you could have a rash, you could even have cough, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, even drowsiness. And if it affects other parts of the body, based on the part of body is affected, like lungs could be affected, brain could be affected, diarrhea may be more severe, body pains, weakness, all of those could be there. You are most infectious, actually, even before you have all the symptoms. So that's why many times the measles is missed. So by the time the symptoms have come in, you may have already transmitted the virus to several other people. So typically one family member gets it, and then it gives it to several other people. Or like children, as I mentioned, might get it. They go to school or a daycare, and then they can transmit it to other people in the daycare or in the school, and several others will get infected through that. The treatment for measles is mainly symptomatic. There is no specific treatment in most of the cases, or it is not necessarily needed. It is a self-contained type of virus and illness. Most people will get better without a specific treatment. So what is commonly required is only good nutrition fluids. If they are not eating, they might require IV fluids. For fever, you might require medications to bring down the temperature. It's like paracetamol or other medications to bring them temperatures down, even cold sponging. If they have a lot of itching or irritation of the skin, you might need some medicines to decrease the itching. And if they are having some nausea and vomiting, maybe medications to prevent vomiting. Same thing for diarrhea. If lungs or brain get affected, then you might need medications to support those. So mainly it is supportive. There are some other treatments. There's a medicine called Ravikiran. It's an antiviral medicine, and that could be helpful. There are lots of other investigational therapies that are coming out. None of them have been specifically approved yet for measles, so we don't really use that. If somebody's really serious, we might use Ravikiran at this point. So why measles came back USA? This is a chart of reported measles cases in the US. In the 1950s, measles was one of those diseases that nearly every child got. It caused a high fever and a spotty rash all over the body, and while most recovered easily, it still killed around 500 children each year. Then in 1963, a vaccine became available, and measles became an easily preventable and unnecessary disease. By 2000, measles was officially eliminated in the US, and for a time, less than 100 Americans a year got it. But in the last decade, that number has started to grow. Now, there have been more cases through the first 3 months of 2019 than in all of 2018. Measles is back, and to understand why, you have to understand where it's back. Measles can be quite serious, but now no one needs to get them. Here are those recent measles cases again. If we look at the 2013 spike, we notice something. A good chunk of those cases can be attributed to an outbreak among Orthodox Jews in New York. That huge spike in 2014, most of those cases are all from one outbreak among the Amish in Ohio. 2017, one outbreak in the Somali American community in Minnesota. 2018, different communities of New York Orthodox Jews, and again in 2019. What all of this shows is that the return of measles isn't as widespread as you might think. 75% of recent cases have happened in these close-knit communities. People in these communities tend to read the same news, watch the same TV programs, speak the same language. They go to school together, they worship together. When not enough of them are vaccinated, it tends to spread like wildfire. Like in early 2019 outside Vancouver, Washington, where a measles outbreak sickened 73 people. It originated at a local Slavic church, likely from someone who picked up the disease in Eastern Europe. It quickly spread through the community, infecting mostly small children who weren't immunized. One reason this happened is that the Slavic community in Washington has one of the lowest rates of vaccination in the state. Some of the people in this community don't trust doctors. Yuri is a member of that community. He's also a health data analyst. They have a view that Big Pharma is too ingrained with the medical establishment. They are much more willing to listen to members of the community. Anti-vaccination misinformation can reach anyone. But it's in these small communities where it does the most damage. Most people in these communities are vaccinated. The problem starts when not enough people are vaccinated. It prevents them from reaching what's called herd immunity. Here's how it works. With every vaccine, you need a certain percentage of a community to be immunized in order for the vaccine to work. If a group of people comes into contact with one person contagious with measles and none of them are vaccinated, virtually everyone will get sick. If 50% of the group is vaccinated, that's not enough. The rest are likely to get sick and spread the disease. But at a certain point, if enough people are vaccinated, they can actually protect the few that aren't vaccinated from getting sick, stopping the spread of the disease, herd immunity. This is important because there are people who can't get vaccinated because of their immune system, people like cancer patients and newborn babies. And with measles, because it's so contagious, that number is just really, really high. It's 95%. So basically, everyone who can get vaccinated needs to be vaccinated. We're protecting all those people who can't get vaccines. That 95% number doesn't leave much wiggle room, and a lot of US states are now struggling to meet it. These are the states where the number of kindergartners vaccinated for measles is below the herd immunity threshold. It's half of states. So how do we make sure everyone who can get vaccinated does? It might help to look at it this way. These are the states that allow parents to opt out for religious reasons, and these are the states that allow parents to opt out for any philosophical reason. And then there are a few states that allow neither. The two states that have had no exemptions for a very long time, Mississippi and West Virginia, they haven't seen these big outbreaks in recent years. Part of why Washington's Slavic community has such low vaccination rates is simply because Washington allows them to easily opt out. In several areas of the state, particularly in the regions affected by the outbreak, the vaccination rates among kindergartners have significantly dropped, falling well below the threshold required for achieving herd immunity. However, in response to this outbreak, lawmakers in Washington have stepped forward with a proposed bill aimed at eliminating exemptions from vaccines that are not medically based. It seems that one of the most effective strategies to ensure that all communities achieve herd immunity, thereby safeguarding those who cannot receive vaccinations, could be to remove the option of opting out of vaccinations without valid medical reasons. Stay informed, stay safe, always consult your doctor for accurate medical advice and information about any of this. Consult your doctor for accurate medical advice and information about any of this treatment options.